Welcome to the Eureka Springs Hospital workshop of June 2nd. Excuse me 1 second. Vivian? Hello? Let's take a roll call. We're having trouble getting Vivian in.
Go ahead, Dave.
Are you there?
Roll call.
I am.
Excellent. Okay.
David Carlisle, Commissioner.
Kate Dryer, Secretary.
Brian Byler, Vice Chair.
Vivian?
Vivian Smith, Commissioner.
Sandy Martin, Chair.
Jody Edmondson, Interim CEO.
Cynthia Asbury, CFO.
Thank you all for coming. Sharon is excused with this, but we're all here that need to be here, so that's good. A couple quick updates. Jody.
Yes. Eureka Springs Hospital is officially off of blood product divert effective today. We're scheduled to have our state trauma survey this week, so we are gearing up for that. We did meet with the Rural Health Redesign Center to review our service line assessment. They're working on getting a copy of the recording. They did record it, but it's set to not leave their facility. So they're working with their IT to get that released so I can send it out to the commissioners. And on June 9th, just a reminder that we're having our first community education class on Stop the Bleed. And it's at the hospital starting at 5 p.m.
Excellent. Superb.
Great
Another
job.
quick update is you remember we were scheduled to have Tiffany Means, our CEO candidate, come in over Memorial Weekend. Unfortunately, she got delayed in Los Angeles because they had a patient stabbing in the eye of a doctor, and then another director collapsed and passed away. So she was stuck there. However, the good news is I talked to her this morning, had a long conversation. She's flying in the 19th of June. So we will be setting up a meeting probably in the afternoon of June 20th to meet with her and discuss next steps. So positive stuff today.
Awesome.
Real good positive stuff. And we have the trauma survey on June 4th.
On Wednesday.
Okay. And that is the last hurdle we have, pretty much? Pretty much? You're not committing?
No comment.
Okay, I understand. I understand. This is the first of what's probably going to be a series of budget workshops. Just to recap a little bit, when we did our initial budget, which was the first ever budget of the hospital, we started it in the summer of 2024, before everything started happening, and approved it in November. So we knew it was just a working budget and a goal budget to get things going, and we had planned to do a mid-year review. And I think with the way things are going, a monthly review in every one of our monthly workshops would be good. There are so many variables that many of them we have no control over. But, and we'll be learning about that at Wednesday's workshop. And just real quickly on that, that is Wednesday at 2 here. It's with City Council. And Bo Ryle or Ryle? Jody, do you know how he pronounces it? I think it's Ryle. Anyway, he's president and CEO of the Arkansas Hospital Association. He's going to join us via Zoom and give us updates on state and federal legislation, as well as challenges that are facing hospitals in Arkansas, particularly pertaining to REH models, and then any observation he has or recommendations for Eureka Springs Hospital. That'll be followed by a financial overview, a hospital financial overview that Cynthia and I will do to provide council with background on our financials and explanation on how different hospital financing is than any other model. So right now there are two council people, Steve Holefeld and Dave Avanzino confirmed to be there in person. There are a couple that haven't responded and a couple that can't make it, but because now we have a Zoom, we'll send that link out with the agenda, and perhaps they can join us, and if not, they can watch the video on YouTube. So, with that said, what you have is Cynthia and Jody and I met, it was a long time, but it was brief considering the topic of the budget, to kind of prepare this working document. You'll notice that we have a deficit as of the end of April of 602,133. The 8.5 by 11 page that you have, because we anticipated at least 400,000 of that because of the Pinnacle expenditure and a couple of other one-time expenditures that we have. Also, Oracle Cerner, when we caught up with their payments, there was, Cynthia, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a lump sum check written, but then you went back and you expensed it.
Yeah, the expenses were captured and recorded in the correct month for what the services would have been rendered for. So the expenses captured correctly in the month, but the check was written this year to catch up everything.
Okay, so that was a hit that we had that, again, we knew that eventually when they got their act together, that that would be paid.
But this is reflective of that total amount, right? What we're talking about here, the 633,000,
All right.
602,000, that's reflective of the total amount of that check written, correct? Not,
With the income statement, it captures all the expenses, so it does have any of those expenses from that time period in there, yes. And then our
Okay.
Pinnacle expenditures from the IT infrastructure upgrades, as well as the additional services we've had to take on with Pinnacle IT and stuff to get our network, our cybersecurity, everything up to par to, withstand anything, so.
So those were anticipated. And then in looking over this, I know that staff, and we'll kind of turn it over to you, Jody and Cynthia, because you've been talking about cost-saving measures and kind of where we are. So if you want to go through probably the cost-saving measures first, and then we can talk about the options and opportunities we have for revenue generation, because obviously we've got a combination of the two that we have to balance.
Do you want me to say? So we've looked at different methods. Any cost-saving measures, we've looked at whether it be, going through our contracts, looking at our contract services, or, anything within that, trying to see if there was any way to eliminate any expenditures there. Have not really found too much on that within most of our services. We have pared down before we pared down when we went to an REH and continue. We have looked at positions, and again, looking at cross-training staff, making staff as most, flexible as we can in areas, because some positions are not for a full-time employee. So we continue to evaluate that need and how we can make sure our staffing and our model staffing matrix aligns with the REH needs, continuing getting oversight from the Rural Health Redesign Center as well on that. Excuse me. So within that, I think we do have some areas to improve. Working to staff actually nursing and stuff versus contract. The expense is about the same, but some of these things can kind of just bringing in local people. But within most of our expenses, we have been pared down pretty well. I think within reason, within the past month, we've really kind of went through what we feel like at this time we're comfortable reducing expenses by. So would you agree with that?
What do you think bottom line expenses will average on a monthly basis? It's going to still be around 2 million or so?
Our expenses each month will probably be around, I think it's kind of, and it reflects in there, it's about that. I'd say our typical expenses is about $550,000 a month for our expenses. So, and that's kind of what's reflective in there. We were initially, greater than that and was down around 600,000, I think, even in January for total operating expenses. And then, April was 572,000. So I think around that mark would be, within reason, about 550, less than 600,000 within
So you're
expected
comfortable with
expenditures.
projecting 500?
I would say at least 550,000 a month in expenses, so
Okay.
without any outliers or anything abnormal or capital expenditures and stuff, I would say 550 would be a comfortable. Just monthly between utilities, payroll, staffing, I mean, just kind of the operational meat of the thing would be within that, so.
And as we go through getting out of contract labor into hiring employees, there's not a significant
There
difference.
won't be a significant difference because you'll be taking on benefits and some of that expenditure within, you know, what you might save in an hourly, you'll take on being a full-time employee and carrying the taxes and benefits and stuff for the employee. So again, they're equally in that, so.
So you feel contract labor, like contract nursing, is almost as expensive as bringing someone in from the local area?
Correct, yeah, and we've done and looked at those numbers and statistics with that before because a full-time employee with the matching and the benefits, taxes and stuff that we do provide, being that we are municipal, I mean, we do, it is about equivocal, the same, so.
With our contract nursing, as far as scheduling, do we get into a bigger cost there because of the fact that, you know, you're not bringing someone that's locally here that could come in? Is there any issue there that we need to?
No, I mean, the only positive I'm going to say is with contract staffing, we have more guarantee of shift coverages. We don't have the call-ins, we don't have the overtime, we don't have that kind of thing that puts a strain on our small hospital within, whether it be that we're asking the nursing admin to cover or another nurse to pick up that call-in shift. I mean, because our agency staff are pretty great about, I mean, they're scheduled
Right,
their 3
covering.
days and they cover. I mean, we don't
Okay,
have,
good
we have
point.
more
Good
solid
point.
coverage and sometimes a greater, I mean, experience, I mean, background that some of these nurses come with. I mean, I think you've met some of them, Kate, and can speak to that. I mean, they come with a pretty great skill set from some of these higher level trauma facilities that, you know, it's critical and crucial to have in our small hospital, so.
It saved our bacon, quite frankly, with that. And we did have to bite the bullet and pay double on some of the contracts when our lab first was in trouble. And we had to walk because we had to do it quickly. So I think we paid double the going rate on the contract for that for a while. So that is all part and parcel of that. But again, that was something out of our control and we had no choice. And it was the right decision to make, I think.
Sure.
Okay. Do we anticipate any major repairs? I mean, we don't know with a 800-year-old building.
I mean, it would be more of a capital improvement project, I would say, that we would need, or consideration from the city council or the commission here, and kind of going from there would be, we need our parking lot repaved. I think you guys have heard discussion of that over the past several months. We have solid bids in place for that to redo the front and back parking lot. I mean, there is some areas of risk because I think the parking lot predates, I mean, they said like the 80s or something, I mean, so it's never really been resurfaced and redone. That's about a $100,000 expenditure to fully get the entire front and back, along with digging out and kind of leveling the roots and the
So they
areas
would
that
actually-
are of grievance.
Yeah, so they would actually do some excavation work before and come in
Yes,
with all new.
yes, yeah.
base.
And what was the
Half a
estimate?
About 100,000.
100,000.
But boiler's in good shape and HVAC is fixed and all that stuff, that's great.
Everything that we're aware of at this time, so.
Excellent. Are utilities staying about the same?
Yeah, I mean, between that, I mean, kind of our gas goes down in the summer, but then our electric goes, I mean, so there's kind of that balance of the stuff, but our utilities and stuff maintain pretty reasonably. I do think there's some within areas that we could look within, continuing our Cox bill, because some of it has phone lines and extensions that I think, it might just be a few dollars here and there, but I mean, it's definitely something we're going to be working with IT to make sure which lines are still active, which ones can we ask to be removed, because, I mean, a couple dollars here and there all adds
Sure.
up, so
And we have IT on site now?
we do.
Excellent, excellent.
Well, so back to the parking lot. The dip area, you know, you pull your car in up to the metal bars.
The ambulance, okay.
And then you have the area when you walk under where the
Ambulance?
ambulance goes, so under that awning. So you have this dip area in between the bars and the awning. Since 100K is a lot, could we fix, and I'm looking at you just because I'm not sure if you've if you can visualize the last time you were there, that's where I've noticed the biggest area of risk for us.
That area's always had a really bad sloping area.
So-
It's always-
Could we fix that area first as we're gathering the funds for the front and the back? Because now I can't speak to the back because I'm not ever back
You
there.
talk
I
about-
just know about that dip area. Could we fix that? You know, since we've just had the outlay on the heart monitors, the procedure carts, the crash carts, and Pyxis. And is that Pyxis $50K as a rental each month, or was that a startup fee for Pyxis?
On the Pyxis,
It's on this sheet.
We
It's
lease
a little,
our
Med
Pyxis
dispenser?
machine. Yeah, we lease the Pyxis machine.
so that's $50K a lease each month?
No.
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay, good. All right, well,
I
since,
get what you're saying on the parking lot, and I will say, I did ask one of them when they were on site.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is the expenses is bringing the equipment, all of that, kind of the legwork of getting the equipment there to fix areas, and kind of just doing a patch is just a Band-Aid. And sometimes, I mean, you're going to be a pretty hefty Band-Aid just to do a spot or so because of, I mean, you still have to pay for all the time. And I think you can respect that, Brian. I mean,
Right,
where,
Kate,
you know,
once you're going
The
to have.
crew in,
You need to do
it's
it all.
kind of
You need to do
like-
it all at one time. The reason being is because the asphalt operation, you don't
Okay.
want to come in and do one part asphalt,
Okay.
and come back 2 months later and do another part. You got to hit it all and knock it out if you're
so,
going to do it.
It's all
okay.
equipment, yeah.
So as far as just the really bad parts right now, since it's a city facility, could the city come
and do some like hot patch or something.
do
and
some hot gravel fill, oil fill, you know, in those bad spots just to help us manage the risk?
Possibly,
I
think
guess
that-
my question is,
I can talk to the mayor.
have we ever
Okay.
used the city to come up there and do work on the?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think we have, so we have to check on that, where that's laid out. But
Because technically, they're not responsible for the maintenance, we are. But I can ask them and see if Public Works can do something.
Okay,
Absolutely.
great. I mean, that would at least help us
Sure.
manage risk in the interim period. Since we've had, you know, the heart monitors were $56K, and the procedure carts were $14, crash carts were $6, and those were all things that we absolutely had to have. But it might help us, you know, get a little bit of breathing room, maybe.
Right.
And back on the Pyxis, is that a lease? I remember something we
Yeah,
discussed it when.
the Pyxis is a monthly lease payment we
Monthly,
pay, yes.
okay.
Yeah, and this 50,000 is just the one-time upfront type of pay, right? Is it correct, that cost?
No, that was a total for it,
That was the
right?
total for the,
Annual.
I think that's what we figured is the annual payment on the lease.
okay, so 50,000, all right.
Must I have on that?
And obviously, all that Pinnacle, you know, that was one time for the server licensing and all that. I mean, golly, yeah.
That was modernizing IT.
I mean, IT that was 10, 15 plus years old and,
Yeah.
and I mean, put our entire infrastructure at risk, so.
So I know we keep talking about this, but, so the RH money, does this give us the ability with some of these costs to be ate up by
Absolutely.
RH, right? And
Absolutely.
So we're not,
Improvements in infrastructure, yes.
right, we're not pulling it out of our general fund, we're actually able to use the RH.
Yes. The conversion money, I mean, the money we had, I mean, that's what it was set, the money we got awarded from state was for improvements, I mean, expanding service lines, building infrastructure, because I mean, those were things they noted when they did our on-site assessment, so.
So the paving of the property and the repair
Could be
work,
used out of that, yes. Would be a
nice.
capital improvement, so yes.
you know, so I mean, that's a good thing in that aspect of it.
So,
On the, I know the crash carts, the heart monitors, particularly the procedure carts, those have all been fantastic purchases that were necessary, more so than we even thought. Are there more on the equipment side that we need to prepare for?
there is some additional equipment that the ER physician group has identified as needs that they would, I mean, it's kind of industry standard. I mean, it's not a special want or wish. It's more of industry standard equipment. There's a few items that we do need to purchase. I would say probably about $75,000 would probably be about, I mean, a ballpark at this time for the additional equipment that they would like, just to be able to provide that top-of-the-line care, so, excuse me.
They're both not feeling well, so we'll be gentle with you. Okay, and so the lab and trauma, everything else is good to
I
go?
mean, there is a lab equipment purchase that was identified that is a possible, it's not an urgent need, I wouldn't say, but it would be a nice addition to the lab to help point-of-care testing, to help, streamline some of that on-site testing capability, so. And
Do
that
we have
machine
a-
was about $30,000.
About
so-
30, okay.
I mean, there is some of those.
And all those go into my favorite line, purchase services?
Correct.
All those go in
Would be
there?
under our equipment, so yeah.
So we can anticipate that going up some more.
We have not made an authorization on any additional purchases at this time, but those are things that we do have quotes on and would further kind of are working to distinguish which are more critical, which ones, say the ER physicians and what, prioritizing what is your number one, number two, so we can kind of help them present them and inform the commission of any additional purchases we need to make.
Okay. By the next workshop, can you do that prioritization
Yeah.
for us?
Yes.
And then we can
Yeah.
figure it in, because I'm thinking that if we have that and investing with equipment that is needed is maybe priority, and the parking lot might literally need to go on a wish list parking lot.
Right.
And, and unless the city can help us,
Just that
Well,
area
my only
in
thing
between
about- Right,
just that one
You
dippy
mean
area
pedestrian access to the building?
right.
at the
Yeah,
ER. And
right.
just-
I think the
yeah.
biggest thing in all that is if the city gets involved at all with the parking lot area, if they've got any projects for paving again that are going to be done in the city, it would be nice if we could coordinate that.
Yeah.
And maybe
Good
save
idea.
some money that way. The one thing I look at with the paving thing is the aesthetics of the hospital. It really brings a really nice look. But we need to prioritize, like we said, because equipment and the service is more important than anything. But the aesthetic, when we start to think more about this, what that would do for just showing, our attitude as a whole, that we want to.
Correct.
So, I
Because it
mean,
does
I'm just-
include
I
the
think in that-
restriping and sealing and everything,
Right,
so it would
right.
just.
Right, it's almost like putting a whole new paint job on the hospital, but it's just one of those things that would, but we need to prioritize, like you say, it definitely has got to be equipment and taking care of the hospital for our folks, because that's going to be the win-win in the whole game.
well, just the parking lots, stripes being painted in
Yeah,
the landscaping
yes,
that Velvet
absolutely,
crew did. that,
absolutely.
That's cool.
Can
And
I-
also, that brings me to a point, I need to talk to Butch. It's actually the RDOT that does it, but we talked about, they requested a sign at 62 and whatever that is.
Right there at the old Kings Highway.
Yes,
Curve.
yes.
Yeah.
Right there at that curve, because there's not appropriate required signage actually to
Absolutely.
indicate where a hospital is, and there's not appropriate signage even on Kings Highway to indicate where a hospital
Hospital's at.
emergency room is.
It's a great idea. The RDOT ought to be ready to jump on that and give us that.
I think so.
The
And
hospital sign that's there, I can see why the ER docs and other people go down
Bentley.
Street.
Bentley.
Benton,
Yeah.
because it's on the far side, closest to Benton, and the arrow really does appear like it's directing you to go down Benton. So that one right there, if there's a business there, so I don't know if they would allow us to have to just move it forward closer to
Log cabin.
King's, the log cabin.
Or even
you know,
across the
8,
highway on the
10
backside
feet.
there, on the where your, that community center kind of area there, is if there was a more upfront kind of pointing to follow Kings Highway around, it might help too. So it wouldn't be right in front of the log cabin building, so.
Or maybe just add another on below the arrow that says Kings Highway. That would help too.
But you've got to know the names of things. That's not real, well,
RDOT's going to make that, they'll pretty well drive their own thought process to some degree to where they want to put it. We'll just see what we can do.
We can recommend it.
Right, that's exactly right.
Yeah, okay, cool. Anything else in rents and leases are pretty much the same?
They should, I mean, maintain about the same, so, I mean, our equipment leases, I mean, are until like 2027, so, I
Okay.
mean, there shouldn't be any changes within that, so.
And any of these going forward, future equipment purchases, we're looking at whether leasing or buying is
Fine,
whatever's
yes,
the best
correct,
avenue, right?
yes, yes.
And we have put on hold hiring a marketing director for now?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Supplies, how do you feel that's going to fall?
I think some of those months where you see the outliers is because sometimes whether it be pharmaceuticals or other supplies and stocking specifics, I say probably around 10,000 or so a month would be a safe number.
10,000?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're continuing to work, and that's kind of our plan in the next couple weeks to work closely with the ER department, I mean, with Lana, CNO, and Velvet, and the nursing to identify what critical supplies are needed for our ER, what are we stocking that's not needed, so we can help par that down, because that hasn't been done, so.
So the January and March highs of the 20,000, is that, I mean, is that because we were lacking stuff that we maybe had not had for a while, or?
And sometimes some of the equipment, whether it be some of the trays and stuff, are more expensive. They're, $400 or $500 a piece, but they
Okay.
last for so long. And sometimes when they expire, we have to replace them, and sometimes we don't
So we get
utilize.
that
So it's
large.
kind of a mix of it, but, and we can always drill into that if you want further detail.
Well,
but
I
some
mean,
of
when I
it's-
start thinking about an average, we're saying 10,000, yet we're looking at two highs of 20-some thousand, then a 12,000. It's kind of like, wow, are we, is that benchmark too low? Should it be more like 15? I mean, in looking at these, January through April of this year, am I looking at the right place under supply?
Yes, yeah. I mean, we could, safely, if you say 15, would definitely be safe, because I think that's more about 12 is where it's averaging. And some of that is from, pharmaceuticals, and we've had to bring in some additional, more expenditures on medications, stocking some that we didn't have, or building out some stuff. But yeah, so if we done 15 would be safe, and we can, again, it's a working budget, and then if we look and we're like,
Look at our
we're bit,
average
we
at
can
the
always
time.
adjust it from there, so.
We had a bunch of expired stuff that we had to throw out. And
Yeah, and we had to replace stuff
the
and
cleanup.
Yeah, that was
getting
the
certain-
January hit.
And then getting certain critical ER supplies in that was identified that we needed, so yeah.
Other questions in those buckets?
Well, it's looking, all the things in red, that numbers that we have adjusted to X amount a month. When I'm comparing those to the reality of January, February, March, April, for the most part, we've come in under that, but the money that we're saving, because we've come in under budget, thankfully we're under budget, we're having to spend on labor. So it's good that we were under budget on some things, like instead of having to spend $5,500 on repairs and maintenance, in April we only had to spend $531. So that was, it's good to have things like that. But going back up to bad debt expense, we had a projected $1.5 million back in October 24, and we have figures for January and February, with February hardly any compared to January, and then on March and April, those 2 months are blank. So I'm assuming that we didn't have any bad debt expense March and April.
And
And I'm extrapolating from that perhaps all of the improved charting that we're doing is allowing us to bill for the services that we're giving. Is that am I on target for?
To a degree, yes, and some of the bad debt is when they are returned from our collection agency, and so we did change collection agencies because our current one was assumed by another one at the beginning of the year, and I do say that we are seeing a better working on our accounts, so.
Nice.
And helping and assisting in that, so, and our patients are pretty preemptive on paying their bills, and we're, just in the whole system, and Oracle is flowing, I think, a lot more efficient to not have the degree, so. I would safely say, that is a figure based off of our previous couple years, so I wouldn't change that amount at this time just because that was. And
Oh,
it's
sure.
a new system. I mean, they're really working a lot more aggressively on the accounts before just
Yeah.
returning them as saying uncollectible, and we have to write them off as
Okay.
bad debt, so.
Because January was 216,000 and February was 1,700.
And a
And then,
lot of January
you know,
was
that's
our
just-
old MedHost accounts. of being
Sure,
returned
sure,
back.
but,
So,
I mean, that's wonderful improvement.
Oracle's turning out to be a great,
Great.
great
Great.
platform for
Transparency,
us,
yeah.
which is good. A lot more accuracy
That's
and a lot more reporting, you know, that we can pull.
And I'll say, I mean, I roughly looked at the numbers this morning, and don't quote me on it, but we billed out close to almost 800,000 in billable revenue for the month of May, which is on target, track where we should be, what we have typically billed. So, I mean, we are seeing, our volume has increased. I mean, I know we reported that last time. I mean, our numbers just continuously are back to where they were baseline or better. So, I mean, we billed out almost 800,000 in the month of May of billable revenue so, I mean, we'll definitely see better numbers as they project and continue to improve. I mean, we have staff that's committed. I mean, we have an amazing team. I mean, that's truly, doing a lot of angles to help within that. I mean, our physician group speaks for itself too. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
And that 800,000 would hit under patient revenue only?
correct. It will be on the other outpatient revenue. It would not be that second line down there you have on that ancillary.
You got patient revenue, other.
It would just be other outpatient revenue, correct. And then we would still have our REH money, and we would still have any of our other ancillary from rentals or something like that. That is correct.
That's huge, 295 to 800, that's huge.
That is correct. We were almost double of what, we were, I wouldn't say, 1.75, what we were last month. I mean, our revenue, again, it's where it was at baseline, back to where we anticipated it, so.
Also on tracking, you just made me think this, not budget-wise, but the Oracle system, and correct me if I'm wrong, only kicks out billed visitation, correct? Versus admitting, but
So we bill, our revenue is going to be whatever our billed services are. So that's on patients that are actually seen, correct? Because if a patient isn't seen, then no, we do not send a bill out because they left without being seen or left without treatment. So, yeah.
And I bring that up because it's been requested by certain council members to go back to 2022, give visitation. Two problems with that. One, it was the old system MedHost. We have no idea what they were counting. The numbers kind of conflicted with some of the reports that were given in the minutes.
What did they want to bring back from 2022? I'm not clear.
Visitation, comparing visitation trends.
So numbers, basically.
Numbers.
Numbers of patients being seen.
Right.
It have that-
Patients being seen, ER and
Right.
inpatient.
So we're only, and I provided, and y'all got copies of it, I provided May 24 to May 25, because that's when we went on to Oracle, and that's what staff feels very confident that is legitimate.
Yeah.
We don't know about the others. Plus, it's going back to 2022, it's post-COVID, it's
Yeah, still, you're still
management system, it's
coming out
another
of that
completely different
lockdown.
hospital.
I mean,
It's another economy, and our numbers
Yeah.
probably aren't valid. We can't determine the validity of the number.
Right,
No way to
Yeah.
use that as a comparison.
We can't use it. There's no point in doing that work.
No way.
yeah,
You
that's
just can't do
what I
it.
believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okey dokey. Pardon me. Any other questions on kind of those buckets before we switch to revenue options?
Well, while we're talking about validity of numbers, and this is off the budget a little bit, but how are the docs, how is everybody dealing with the patient records?
The charting and completeness.
Right, the charting
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, everything is, they're completing them timely. We're billing out. Our coding and everything's kept up current date. So, we're,
Are we modifying the forms to make it easier yet? Is that a process?
Dr. Roberts has been working with Oracle, and we're trying to
Okay.
figure out that process still. So, trying
Okay,
to
so
see how
that's
we can
just
get
an
templates and stuff.
ongoing
Yeah, that's kind of an ongoing
tedium,
thing.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, then the other end of it are revenue opportunities and options. I know Dr. Roberts is anxious to start hitting the streets, and I think we're ready to unleash him and have him make some presentations. We're members of Rotary, are we not?
Correct.
Okay, maybe that might be the first one that we ask him to attend, and anybody else that wants to go. I mean, Lana would be great, either one of you. I'll be glad to go as well. I think that would be a good thing, but the more we can start scheduling those, I think the better off it is, and the more we're going to build up community confidence and referrals. So on the revenue side, what's your gut feeling? I mean, the jump from April to May is really encouraging.
It is, and I mean, that's what we said, the last 2 weeks of April was, I mean, we were at baseline or better than what we were compared previously under an REH. So I mean, I do think May, again, it's right on track and kind of better than where we were. So I do feel that we'll continue that. I mean, again, we're tourists, so I mean, we do see those peaks in the summer months, and we will decrease in the winter months. So I mean, that's kind of, so.
And I think realistically, we need to project for a loss this year, just because we've got so much upfront one-time expenses that, we've already got into in the half of the year. And I think what we're all concerned about is what's going to happen with Medicaid and Medicare. And Cynthia, you attended,
It was I sat through.
you want to do a top line on what you learned?
Yeah, so I was in a meeting last week, a full 9 hours on one day last week. I'm not going to tell you what day it was. And then like a half a day the next day. And it was intensive on the CMS Medicare kind of transitions and changes are making July 1 and then October 1, just coding and reimbursement and just kind of additional requirements are going to be made into charts to, validate code. You're going to have to actually put, that you spent this much time and kind of some details and stuff like that. But reimbursement rates are decreasing. And then Medicaid, of course, is a very volatile one that we're lucky if we see. I mean, again, pennies on the dollar on any patient. We are, a heavily populated Medicaid or Medicaid. I mean, those Ambetter and some of those plans reimburse about the same just because they are government-funded plans from Medicaid. So
Did they mention the Medicare, the percentage of the reimbursement change? Was it 10% less than what we're getting now, or did they say what
they didn't have a finite number yet because they hadn't been released. And then with us, we are at cost plus 5% on a lot of ours because we are an REH. So, some of this stuff was, kind of, we haven't gotten that exact fee schedule yet. So we don't know how we can say, how do we compare one year versus the other?
Okay.
Some of our E&M visits were, a decrease of like $16 or $17. That's kind of what's anticipated with the CMS changes. So, how that will affect us, a critical access hospital versus an REH, because there was kind of both on that. It was kind of for rural health. So, there was kind of the talk of that. So
rural health, they were stating that rural health might not have as big of a hit as the acute care facilities?
they were thinking that, we're going to take a smaller, but not as much within that. So
There's a big push for that, and I think,
Since,
again,
yes, yeah.
and it's necessary. My gosh, that's where most of the Medicaid
We would
folks are.
appreciate that they would remember that it was the push out of DC who wanted small places to flip over to REH. Did they mention if they were going to have another meeting for
There
the
will be
CFOs to sit in to after, are they going to do it maybe quarterly or?
there's a couple additional ones that he sent out some information on, and then he has additional publications he will share. And then anytime he provided an email address so I can stay in collaboration and stuff. So he's
Great.
So we've got some insight there to continue to kind of see how is it, because you don't want to flip through an entire fee schedule to see where's my changes. So it's kind of to help point out those top line kind of important.
Did they act like they were open to feedback from the REH facilities that are currently open to help them make their decisions?
This guy was not. He was just more of helping deliver and kind of
Okay.
decipher the CMS Medicare changes and guidelines and structures that are coming down to make it more digestible and understanding to everybody. So
Wednesday, when Bo is on, he will have updates on that. And of course, they're strong on advocacy and lobbying. So whatever we can do to support what they're doing, we'll learn about hopefully on Wednesday
Okay.
and start screaming. Anything else on that? Under the revenue, so 800 for May, on an average for the rest of the year, 700 should we calculate in?
I mean, I do think November, December will trail off. I mean, October will probably start leading into the trailing off at the end of, but I mean, I think our slower months are always November, December, January, and February, just kind of depending on weather and then kind of end of tourist season, so.
Yeah, so when you look at January, then, right back, looking at our previous Januaries, it's 279, 284 on the outpatient revenue, that's probably where is a pretty good benchmark for what those months might look like, correct? I think
our lower months were around still,
December, maybe.
I think December and stuff were around 500 still, I mean, on
Okay.
average,
Yeah.
475, 500, so, and then, I
Yeah,
mean,
this drop-off's a reflection of some of the,
Which is tracking.
taking these two
Yeah.
together, yeah, you're right, adding them together, yes. Gotcha, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Yes, we're not,
maybe 800, just projection, because this is a working document. 800 for May, June, and July, and then in August, start tapering it down to where,
I would say we'd be comfortable to carry that probably through August, and then, kind of maybe even into September, start trailing it there down, because there is still festivals, there's still things going on in
Right.
town. It's just not as much traveling, because kids will be back in schools and tourist things of family, but there's still a lot of events on the weekends and stuff, so.
okay, great, great. And anything that needs to be adjusted in any of the deductions to get down to the net revenue?
Nothing realistically. I mean, most of that's going to be just our contractual adjustments based off insurance reimbursements, so. And then any charity care discounts we do, but I don't think there's anything.
Well, we haven't had to use courtesy discounts yet, and we budgeted 310 for that, so that's good.
yeah, sure, Karen.
Okay, so what are our
Before you go,
revenue?
the other contractual, getting back to deductions, the other contractual, we put at 145K, and we haven't had to use very much of that.
What does that go for, other than the other contractual? Is it a,
Some of it would probably, I would have to look and see exactly, I'm going to say other contractual would probably be more of like, we have no authorizations, not having the prior authorization before performing the procedure. We used to have a pretty significant problem with that. We were just treating patients without the proper prior authorization, so we had to write
wow.
off the visit. So that's what a lot of times would hit in that bucket.
gotcha. Gotcha.
So we were doing a lot of outpatient planned procedures
Without
without prior authorization, and all of our plans require prior authorization for things that are not emergency. So we
We
were
have to have
eating,
that for billing, don't we?
we were eating
Yes.
a lot then,
Yes.
because that adds up.
Yes, very quickly.
That's
Well,
expensive
you-
PR for somebody.
Man.
You had to write off quite a bit of debt, didn't you?
We did
a
the
year
bad
ago?
debt last year that's what, on the 24 one, of bad debt just because of authorizations and stuff too, so yeah.
Okay.
What are the criteria for the charity care and the courtesy discounts? How's that offered, or how does it?
And we have a charity application and the information is on our website, so then the
Okay,
patient
so you
fills
go
out
and apply,
And then Madison in the business office typically will handle communication between them, gathering the necessary documentation, which there's a few items that we need, information's on the application, and then we
okay, that's so
review
the
it.
patient qualifies for the.
Correct,
for
and
courtesy-
we say
for-
we're going to
For
write.
charity.
Charity care, yeah. We
Okay.
can write off 100%, or we can say, okay, we can do a 50%, or we just work with them,
Yeah.
look and see with patients, because some of them, and sometimes it's about assisting them at that time, but then giving them further information to apply for like Medicaid or an assistance program, because they would qualify for it.
Right.
So then that way they have that secondary, free. I mean, Medicaid would pick up any co-pays and co-insurances from Medicare, but sometimes patients are just not aware, or their loved one wasn't aware that, they needed to proceed with DHS to get that application, so sometimes that's more.
And the courtesy Because the 310s looks kind of big. What would be, how would
A lot of those courtesy discounts were rolling out of MedHost, and some of that was more on self-pay adjustments, kind of
Gotcha.
discounts and stuff like that.
Okay.
And some of it was
So if someone.
employee
can-
health
right.
accounts, we had to adjust off or some
Yeah,
of that.
someone can have no insurance, basically what we do is if
Yeah.
they pay cash, you're going to give them a
Yes,
discount.
yeah, we give
That
a
would be the-
discount on
Okay,
self-pay.
gotcha.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So going back to prior authorizations and the expanded outpatient services that we want to offer in the coming months that Dr. Roberts is brainstorming on, does Oracle provide per diagnosis and procedure a template for the physician to fill out to help them create the most robust prior auth request?
So prior
Possible.
authorization request comes from the primary care doctor typically. That's who's going to be the one sending the order over for us to do as outpatient. So, and then that, I mean, the insurance company, each and every insurance company, most of them, every one of them are online. So you can go in there, you put in the patient's information, their insurance information, the diagnoses codes, and then the CPT code for the procedure you're wanting. You submit that, it's real time. Within just minutes there, it's going to tell you whether it requires a prior authorization or not. And if it does, then it usually will proceed with you answering a few more questions and uploading documentation for that.
So before someone shows up at our door,
We do insurance verification.
we will have the prior auth approval
Correct,
in our system.
correct.
And was it the, where we didn't have a good enough system in place to receive the online prior auth, and the patient just showed up at the door saying, I'm here for my procedure, and my primary care doc told me that it had been approved, and here I am, and so where was the biggest disconnect, and do we still have ground to make up so that we don't have things falling through the cracks anymore?
I feel we have a solid process in place now. Staff that's understanding of the billing and financial side. We did not have that before.
Okay.
Some that didn't have respect for the process and was more about, let's just get the patient in here, get the patient in here. Great, yes, but it takes just a few minutes to do the prior authorization.
We were just hoping for the best. Get the patient in here, do it, and let's hope for the
Disregard
best, and maybe
policy
they'll,
Procedure, yes.
Don't
so
mess
just
up
as
the
it-
schedule.
they were,
Yeah. Disregard for the following the, process that we had in place for a reason to ensure that we want to provide care. I mean, we can do prior authorizations, can be completed real time. So, I mean, there's no,
so we were just not, we weren't following our decision tree or our
Yes.
procedure properly, and we are now. Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Well, that's kind of on the referring physicians, the people that are making use of the services. I mean,
Correct, yes.
they should bring that paper.
But we had some,
But we weren't making sure that the prior author was in hand,
correct.
that we had printed out or whatever we had to do to make sure we could see approval for XYZ procedure.
We were just taking some clinician staff at word saying it didn't require prior authorization, and then they were not getting it to the billing team, to the business office manager, myself, to run insurance verification. We were just scheduling patients were being scheduled, or were being scheduled even after an acknowledgement that, hey, this does require prior authorization before being scheduled. We did have some that still went ahead and proceeded to be scheduled, so we had to, of course, subsequently write them off, so.
And some of that is maybe being timid and not wanting to give any kickback to the referring physician's office, saying, hey, guys, this person's going to be here in 24 hours, and I still don't have the prior auth in front of me. We're going to have to postpone, or, yeah, it does take some feeling good about oneself to draw a line with the referring physician's practice, yeah.
Revenue options, can you share what you guys have talked about and also what RHRC suggested? Because I think they're pretty much in line with what y'all were talking about.
Yes, we are looking at adding some additional services, and the Rural Health Redesign meeting that we attended identified some areas where we need to market stronger, where we're not capturing the majority of our population, so we're going to tackle those. We're looking at bringing back some IV therapy, and our respiratory department is getting us some information on some services that they can provide easily without a large expense.
Someone asked me the other day, did we at one time have an MRI in a trailer out in front?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And what happened to that?
We were not getting enough referral from our local physicians to meet the minimum that they gave us to keep that trailer there on lease.
And the trailer was there because it was an open MRI or something? It was just an MRI that was on site,
Portable
available to us?
MRI, yes.
It was a mobile MRI? Contract?
Contracted, yes. We leased it, and we had to, I don't remember the number of MRI we had to meet each month, but they gave us a target amount, and we were not meeting that always.
Okay. All right. Then we've got telehealth. That will hit later on this year. That's a whole different ball of wax because it's different billing, there's a lot of work to do with that. And that may change with some of the changes with Medicaid and Medicare as well. So that's a question mark on how much revenue we can make with that because we don't know what the reimbursement models are going to be. But good news is UAMS has been working with them on the pricing models and a software program. So we should be ahead of the game with that. But we have no clue how it's going to affect us. But on the IV therapy, what do you think that will generate? Was it a good profit center for us?
It was a pretty decent profit on, yeah.
Was it?
I mean, we did. And then again, it gets patients in our door. I mean, then, kind of that footprint coming in, visiting, they'll see our nurses and our staff. But I mean, no, the profit was pretty decent on that one. That was our top producing line, and that was something that had been identified by the clinical staff already. So, yeah.
And our CAT scan is still being used pretty heavily.
Yes,
That's
yes.
a good revenue source
Yes.
for us. In respiratory, increasing those services, what do you think that'll be?
And just going to depend because it'll be more of physician referrals for a lot of it for pulmonary function tests and stuff. But I mean, respiratory therapist is already there. We already have that expense of having that employee there. So I mean, utilizing them to do additional things is only, revenue. So I mean, it's just going to depend. I mean, we'll have to market it and bring, kind of thing. But it'll just depend on the degree. So.
And I know Dr. Roberts was going to go out on the Warpath too and meet with the physicians. Does he have a schedule? Has he started doing that?
Is not.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. But yeah, the marketing, and we need to look at maybe increasing our marketing budget a little bit.
I think some of the things with Dr. Roberts or anybody going out, if we make some determination on some of these additional outpatient services, it's a pretty easy kind of with our pamphlets, our brochures, our cards that we make to kind of be when they're going in, making face contacts that they can hand them out to. We've added these additional service lines. We're able to take referrals on these kind of things, fax them over, so.
Is 5,000 reasonable in that line, or is that too low? Marketing.
For expenses, a month? No, I think we're fine with that. We're very conscientious in that.
Huh?
So we're very conscientious on that. No, our marketing stuff usually doesn't cost that much. We order a set of, several hundred cards, whether it be like brochure type or even some of the more postcard size ones. They're $50, $60 each little thing, so it's not too. We still have some from when we made the REH conversion as well. So, we've.
Another thing, and this may be a parking lot deal, y'all know we have an issue with transportation, non-emergency transport. I've talked to Fire Chief Inman several times. I know staff has, and he just can't afford to put on another staff. He didn't understand that we have to make a call and document a call, even if we know they're going to say no to the non-emergency. He didn't realize that. And he said, oh, that's why the nurse said, I know you're going to say no, but, because it has to be documented for REH because of, we have to keep them for 24 and then get them out unless it's observation. So we've talked before about us purchasing our own ambulance and going through that. I shared with staff, I did some research on it. There is a mobile clinic and a mobile non-emergency transport van that we can get. They range anywhere from 125 to 250 with some equipment, but they're pretty cool. They're pretty slick. I gave Jody a copy of it, and I gave Velvet a copy of it. We have 2 paramedics now working for us. Both indicated that they would love, there's a community paramedic certification that they can go for. And apparently it's a valuable certification. And both of them are very eager to do that. So that would be a good thing. There is a new community assist grant that's available that says, I just got it last week from Municipal League, says that healthcare qualifies and that equipment is a qualifier. I haven't dug deep into it. It's a 20% match, but, and the vans don't require additional driver's licenses or any of that stuff. If we can get and maybe get the fire department to split the match with us, I don't know, because it would help them out as well. But if we can get something like that, we can literally do more of what we want to do, which is go to where the patients are.
And it would be the loading, external loading ramp that for wheelchairs and that.
There are
that kind
about
of-
10 different ones. I'll send you the brochure. I'll send that out this afternoon. There are about 10 different versions of it that you can get. The mobile clinic is literally a full clinic. I mean, it's got supplies and all that stuff in it, all obviously wheelchair, handicap accessible. They're pretty slick. They really are.
Well, I'm a little confused on when I hear non-emergent transport, it would get a patient who has been in our ER back home,
Good.
non-emergent, right?
Good.
And if they, after their 23-hour observation was up. But when I hear it's something about being a mobile clinic, I'm hearing two different.
You are,
Okay.
intentionally.
Okay. And so operating a mobile clinic, could you tell me just a little bit more about the idea on?
You know who can tell us a lot about that is Tiffany Means, because they're doing something like that in LA.
Okay.
And I think Velvet has had some experience with it as well.
Okay.
But it literally is a clinic that you can schedule, a mobile clinic that you can schedule with docs and nurses. Schedule, like, go to Holiday Island, go to Huntsville. go to
Extra
certain
revenue
areas.
source. So we want non-emergent, but you would want to use the same vehicle instead of having two vehicles.
Yes.
Okay. And then our drivers, our EMT or paramedic drivers would just be on call as needed
We will need to insure it.
and rotate. They would just rotate their call
I
schedule.
mean, it seems like an
Okay.
opportunity. It will solve our non-emergency transport problem for sure, which is, is big. Because we can't take a chance to jeopardize our REH standing, in any way. So we've got to get them transported in a safe way. Gary, Johnny on the spot with, anything emergency, absolutely. But it's just something to explore. I'll send it out and we can talk about it. I think the grant deadline was July, the end of July sometime, so we've got time to talk about it and to see. But the mobile clinic concept, ask Tiffany about that when she comes in, because I think she's got some experience.
Thank you.
And a question, a transport would also be used to transport patients from the ER elsewhere for further care?
We could if it's non-emergency. If it's emergency, we still
Right. You'd have
still
to
should
go
use.
through the system, but you could transport people to further care up the,
Yes.
across the corridor.
Which would relieve.
Okay, not just taking folks home,
Right.
but take them where they need to go.
Right,
And that would
exactly.
relieve the fire department of having to try to take time out of their,
Because that's the issue. If,
Right.
if it's a non-emergency, if they just need,
Right.
like the guy that had the broken arm that went to Wash Reach, for example. I mean, non-emergency, but he needed to go to another facility.
Yeah.
Our EMS won't take that.
Right.
So we have to figure that out, and actually, I think they wound up taking him, but that will solve that problem. It's been a bone of contention for years,
Right.
for like
Absolutely.
20 years, from what I understand, because the Western District EMS contract, which we think is going out to bid, doesn't include non-emergency. It just says emergency, and that's by city ordinance as well.
So it's
So
hanging on
Gary
to
has
the
every
problem.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, to refuse it, but, puts us in a bind.
Right.
So we need to solve that, so that goes on that list of, to me, it's a priority, but not as much of a priority as the equipment that we need, and making sure that our physicians and our staff have everything that they need internally. So anyway, just something to think about. Vivian, do you have anything?
No, I'm good, Sandy. A
Oh.
lot of information.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that you weren't forgotten and to get a chance, because I forget to call on you when you're on the phone.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. You have anything else as far as potential revenue, obviously building those out, outpatient services and looking at it? I know that we talked about mental health, behavioral, as opportunities. That's getting bigger and bigger and more important and showing up in all the health equity assessments. So if we could, move in that direction in some way, because we do have, clinic space available. And, anything in that line would be helpful as well. Okay?
Behavioral health, would that be part of telehealth, or would telehealth?
Could be part of
would-
it, and
would
UAMS
involve
does
that?
have a staff, and they were
Right.
ones that also brought it up when we talked to them about potential revenue.
Yeah, it
with
seems
it.
with the supply of personnel we have,
Yep,
having somebody on the telehealth would be a
yeah, I think the telehealth will be great on that. Anything else? Anything else? Okay, what I'm going to do is plug in make-believe numbers and see where we fall on this. And Cynthia, if you can get a chance, if you can just bottom line the net revenue at the end, because I'm still unclear as to how those other deductions and everything hit. But if you can do like a range, because I'm thinking we'll have a good scenario, bad scenario, two options to look at, because obviously the variable is going to be how we build these additional revenue sources up. And then in our July meeting, we will continue, and we'll just kind of keep adjusting it as we go on, because I don't see any other way. I don't think we can do a finite budget that
No.
we can have confidence in for more than 20 minutes.
It's an ever-changing world, so why try to put it in concrete? It just,
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's not a bad thing to have a working
Yeah.
budget either, because there are things that I'm sure are going to come up, and we need to be flexible. And, I commend the staff for focusing on the right thing, getting the equipment. You guys have, again, I get cream for saying this, but you've done a phenomenal job. And I don't care what anybody else says. You should know that, and we thank you and appreciate you for doing all that, because you're focusing on the right things and you're keeping the hospital up. And congratulations on the lab. That's
Yeah.
huge, because it's fixed for the first time, and it's healthier, and we have more people, more highly qualified people running the lab, so there might be potential there as well. So,
And thank you, Sandy. Goodness gracious.
thank you.
Man,
Thanks.
it's a yeoman's job.
It's a team, believe me. Anything else before we conclude?
Not for me.
Okay, we don't have to have commissioner comments, it's not a, so we're good. Thank you again. This concludes the Richard Springs Hospital Workshop of June 2nd, 2025. Thank you.